cryptocurrency is, it's constantly pitched to you as the next iteration of the internet, like the grand technological revolution of our time.
Yeah.
But when you actually strip away all the buzzwords and look at the underlying mechanics, you aren't really looking at a revolution. You're looking at a crime scene. I mean, it's a massive, globally coordinated effort to extract wealth from everyday people.
It really is. And it's genuinely disturbing once you start following the money. Today's deep dive is pulling from this massive investigative breakdown by James Janney. It's titled Crypto, the World's Greatest Scam.
Yeah.
And our mission today is to just bypass all that complex technobabble. We are going to look exclusively at the psychological manipulation, the manufactured greed, and, the exact dark mechanics used by the biggest players in the financial world to quietly drain the public's wallets.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the nature of a scam this large, you really have to look at the origin of the weapon itself. The source material takes us back to the ashes of the 2008 financial crisis.
Right, a time of total panic.
Exactly. Trust in traditional banks is practically non-existent. And this mysterious entity named Satoshi Nakamoto drops Bitcoin. It's pitched as a decentralized currency for the people.
And right out of the gate, you have this highly seductive pitch, right? A digital currency controlled by no government, completely immune to the corruption of Wall Street. But here is the critical mechanical flaw. It's basically the original sin of the entire crypto ecosystem.
Okay, what is it?
Bitcoin completely failed its primary mission. As a global currency, it is effectively useless. And that comes down to its core design.
Wait, how so? I mean, people talk about buying coffee with Bitcoin all the time, or, buying cars.
Well, they talk about it, sure, but the network literally cannot handle it. Bitcoin can process a maximum of about 7 transactions a second globally.
7.
7. To put that in perspective, Visa handles around 1,700 transactions per second. MasterCard is doing like 5,000. So 7 transactions a second for the entire planet means it can literally never function as a daily currency.
Wait, if it's digital, why is it so incredibly slow? Like it's just code, right?
It is, but it's slow because of a mechanism called proof of work. See, to remove the central bank from the equation, Bitcoin needs a way to verify transactions so people don't just spend the same digital coin twice.
Right.
So it does this by forcing a global network of computers to solve these insanely complex, completely arbitrary math problems. It's basically an arms race. Whichever computer solves the puzzle first gets to verify the transaction and is rewarded with a little bit of Bitcoin.
Oh, wow.
And this intentionally requires massive, just horrifying amounts of real-world electricity.
So the inefficiency isn't a bug. It's built into the system to create artificial scarcity.
Precisely. So it failed as a functional currency, but, instead of dying out, it mutated. Because it had a price attached to it, it morphed into a speculative asset. And this is where the underlying architecture starts to perfectly mirror a Bernie Madoff-style Ponzi scheme.
I was going to ask about that, actually, because comparing a decentralized technology to the largest criminal fraud in Wall Street history, I mean, that is a heavy accusation.
Yeah.
How are they structurally the same?
Well, look at the cash flow. Bitcoin produces nothing. It doesn't generate revenue like a tech company. It doesn't provide a service. It doesn't pay dividends to its shareholders. The only way you, as an investor, can make a profit on Bitcoin is if someone else comes along tomorrow and buys it from you at a higher price.
So it's like buying an empty safe, just hoping someone else will come along and pay you more for that same empty safe tomorrow.
That is the mechanical reality. You are only making money by extracting the actual real-world cash deposited by new investors.
That presents a really dark contradiction. I mean, the more people buy it as an investment to get rich quick, the less viable it is as the currency it originally claimed to be. But if everyone is just buying an empty safe, eventually people realize there's nothing inside. So how did this entire industry not just collapse by, 2015?
Because a Ponzi scheme requires a constant, uninterrupted influx of new capital. When Bitcoin alone wasn't enough to lure in fresh money, the ecosystem had to build a new trap. And that brings us to the launch of Ethereum and the era of the ICO casino.
Ah, right. ICO, meaning initial coin offering. I remember this blowing up around 2017. But mechanically, what did Ethereum do that Bitcoin couldn't?
So Bitcoin is essentially just a ledger recording transactions, right? But Ethereum introduced something called smart contracts. These are essentially programmable if-then statements built directly into the blockchain.
Okay.
And what this allowed anyone to do for the very first time was piggyback on Ethereum's network to easily create and issue their own custom tokens.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you didn't have to build a whole new blockchain network from scratch anymore. You could just Type a few lines of code, and boom, you've printed your own digital money.
And that triggered an absolute avalanche of blatant fraud. According to the investigation, anyone could write a vague white paper document, invent a token, and sell it directly to the public for real money.
Hmm?
I mean, you had Jesus Coin, which literally promised to decentralize miracles on the blockchain. You even had something called Ponzi Coin.
Yeah, that one is particularly revealing.
It's insane. The founders explicitly wrote on their official website that it was a literal scam, and people still gave them $250,000.
But hold on, how is this legally allowed to happen? Why didn't the SEC just immediately shut this down as illegal securities trading?
Well, because the crypto industry heavily relied on regulatory gray areas and just moving way faster than the law could adapt, they were effectively running unregulated global casinos trading unregistered securities.
Right.
But to keep the price of these newly invented tokens pumping, the creators needed to manufacture hype. They needed fresh retail investors. So the grift evolved to incorporate a new type of accomplice, basically the celebrity getaway driver. This is where you see Floyd Mayweather and DJ Khaled taking these massive undisclosed payouts to push a token called Centra.
Right. And what happened with Sintra?
It's horrifying. Centra raised $32 million from everyday people. The founders claimed they had this groundbreaking partnership with Visa and MasterCard. They even listed a CEO with an impressive resume on their website, but none of it was real. The CEO literally didn't exist. It was a fake profile. The co-founder eventually got sentenced to 8 years in federal prison.
And what's fascinating and crucial to understand here is that for the people running the ICOs, it didn't matter if the project worked or if the technology was real.
Because that wasn't the point.
Exactly. The sole objective was hyping the token enough to create an exit window for the founders and the early investors to cash out with real money, leaving the retail investors holding these worthless digital tokens.
But eventually, the SEC did start waking up. The ICO bubble popped. The well of new victims started to run dry. So the machine needed a new mask to legitimize itself and lure in fresh capital. And that mask was the NFT.
The non-fungible token.
Right. And the inciting incident, the specific moment that set the hook for the entire world, was the $69.3 million sale of a digital art collage by an artist named Beeple.
I remember that making headlines everywhere. It sounded like this revolutionary moment. Digital artists could finally verify ownership of their work and get paid for it.
Yeah, that was the narrative.
But the source material digs into the actual mechanics of that transaction, and the truth behind it is incredibly cynical.
Wait, what do you mean?
The entire transaction was manufactured. The buyer of that $69 million artwork was anonymous at first, going by the pseudonym Metakovan. His real name is Vinesh Sundaresan.
Okay.
He wasn't just some random art collector. He was a crypto entrepreneur who already had an established working relationship with Beeple. Months before this massive purchase, Metakovan had set up something called the B20 token.
What was the pitch for the B20 token?
The idea was that he would buy Beeple's art, place it in a virtual digital museum, and then sell fractional ownership of that museum to the public via this B20 token.
Okay, but here is the catch. The investigation reveals that Metakovan and his business partner already owned 59% of the total supply of that B20 token before the auction even happened.
Exactly. Think about the timeline. He uses his massive crypto wealth to buy the art for an astronomical $69 million. He knows it will break records.
Right, the media just eats it up.
The global media goes completely crazy. The word NFT skyrockets in Google search trends, and consequently, everyday retail investors rush in and pump the value of his B20 token.
Wow.
The $69 million purchase wasn't an art acquisition. It was a giant, orchestrated marketing stunt designed to pump his own token.
A token which today has fallen over 99% in value.
Right.
But here's where it gets really interesting, and by interesting, I mean deeply insulting to anyone who bought into the NFT craze. Let's break down the mechanical reality of what an NFT actually is, because the general public thinks they are buying a digital picture that lives permanently on the blockchain.
They absolutely are not. We talked earlier about how slow Bitcoin is because of its block size. Storing high-resolution image files on a blockchain would be incredibly slow and prohibitively expensive.
So where is the art?
Most NFTs do not contain the artwork at all. The NFT is literally just a database entry, and inside that entry is a web link, usually an HTTP or IPFS link, that points to where the image is actually stored on a regular centralized internet server.
So let me get this straight. You aren't buying the picture. You're buying a hyperlink. You literally just own a digital receipt with a URL written on it, and if the startup hosting that server goes out of business and unplugs their computer,
Your link points to a 404 error. Exactly. You own a token pointing to a void.
that is just, wow.
The manipulation didn't stop with obscure crypto millionaires running shell games. It actively infiltrated mainstream pop culture to target the ultimate retail victims, which are celebrity fan bases.
Oh, you're talking about the Bored Ape Yacht Club. Suddenly, Jimmy Fallon and Paris Hilton are on national television, flaunting these cartoon apes. Justin Bieber posts one to his 250 million followers, reportedly worth $1.3 million. They called it a community.
But if you look at the underlying blockchain ledger, the narrative completely unravels, and this is the great undeniable irony of the entire crypto scam. They hype the blockchain as a public, immutable ledger.
Right.
But that exact public transparency is what allowed independent Twitter sleuths to track the wallets and expose the fraud.
Yes. The sleuths looked at the public ledger and discovered that Bieber didn't actually buy that ape. Bieber's crypto wallet received 900 Ether, the crypto required to make the purchase, from the wallet of his own business partner.
Unbelievable.
He was promoting an NFT collection owned by his business partner without any legal disclaimer. It was an undisclosed, paid advertisement dressed up as a genuine purchase, specifically designed to induce FOMO, fear of missing out, in his fans.
And the connective tissue facilitating these celebrity acquisitions was a company called MoonPay. They acted as a sort of white glove concierge service.
How did that work?
Well, celebrities were using MoonPay, signing strict non-disclosure agreements, so the exact financial terms of their promotions were completely hidden from the public.
And the investigation reveals it goes even deeper into market manipulation. The CEO of MoonPay, Ivan Soto-Wright, had internal access to this information. He knew exactly which celebrities were about to announce their NFT purchases on social media.
And the blockchain records prove it. Investigators tracked his public wallet and found him buying into those exact NFT projects right before the celebrities made their public announcements.
That is textbook insider trading. I
Okay.
mean, he buys in, the celebrity tweets, the retail fans rush in and pump the price, and he's sitting on a massive profit. It is a rigged casino dressed up as a quirky internet art community.
It really is.
But this brings up a massive question. If the underlying asset is just a hyperlink, and the market is obviously rigged by insiders, how do you prevent a bank run? Like, if everyone panics and sells, the Ponzi collapses. How do they keep the money trapped inside?
You have to brainwash the investors. The crypto space engineered a highly specific cult-like social environment. It relies on a mechanism of enforced toxic positivity. From the moment you buy in, you are conditioned with terminology like HODL, hold on for dear life.
Right. No matter how much money you are losing, you hold. If you hold through a crash, you are praised for having diamond hands. You are treated like a hero in the Discord servers and Reddit forums.
But if you decide to cut your losses and sell,
You have paper hands, you are mocked and ostracized as a traitor to the community.
and consider what happens if you actually read the white paper and dare to point out that the technology doesn't work or that the founders are acting suspiciously. You are instantly accused of spreading FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Or you are hit with the ultimate thought-terminating cliche, have fun staying poor.
It functions exactly like a high-control cult. If you ask to see the actual financial statements, you get excommunicated.
Because it is a financial retention tool. If one individual panics and sells, it lowers the price of the token, which directly hurts the net worth of the founders and the community leaders.
So they created a culture where questioning the economic reality of the project is framed as a moral failing.
Exactly. You isolate the individual from outside logic because their blind faith is the structural integrity holding up the entire scam.
But eventually, even the most devoted first-world investors tapped out. The greed machine needed a new demographic, and it turned its sights onto the most financially vulnerable people on Earth. This part of the source material is deeply unsettling.
Yeah, we are talking about the era of Web3 and play-to-earn gaming.
Let's clarify that term first, because it was everywhere. What was Web3 supposed to be?
The pitch for Web3 was a decentralized internet where users actually own the platforms and the content they create, rather than giant corporations like Google or Meta owning everything. You would own your data in the form of crypto tokens.
Sounds great on paper,
Right, but in reality, it was just a rebranding effort. The crypto industry had a massive public relations problem after the ICO and NFT scams, so they slapped the Web3 label on the exact same token generation schemes to make it sound like an inevitable software upgrade.
And the poster child for this Web3 gaming revolution was a game called Axie Infinity. The premise sounds innocent enough. You buy 3 cartoon NFT creatures, you battle them, and you earn a cryptocurrency token called SLP, which you could then trade for real, local currency.
But the barrier to entry was totally predatory. The required NFTs cost thousands of dollars. The target demographic couldn't afford that. So wealthy investors would buy the NFTs and rent them out.
And who are they renting them to?
Impoverished individuals, largely in developing nations like the Philippines during the height of a global pandemic, these players were called scholars.
So you had desperate people playing this repetitive, mindless mobile game for 6 to 12 hours a day just to afford basic groceries, while kicking a massive percentage of their earnings up to their wealthy managers in the West.
It was essentially digital sharecropping. And here is the fatal mechanical flaw of the SLP token they were earning. The only way you could generate SLP was by playing the game, and the primary use for SLP was to breed more Axie creatures to sell to new players.
So the entire internal economy was 100% dependent on an endless stream of new players buying into the game.
Exactly. The moment the influx of new players slowed down, the demand for breeding stopped. But the scholars still needed to play every day to feed their families, so they kept generating millions of new SLP tokens. The currency hyperinflated.
It crashed. It lost 99% of its value. The money they were relying on evaporated overnight. The system took desperate people, gave them false hope, and used their manual labor to enrich the early investors before collapsing.
Which forces us to ask the ultimate question: who is bankrolling this? Who is building the infrastructure for this casino?
Right, because it's not just anonymous hackers in basements.
No, it's the apex predators of Silicon Valley, venture capital firms.
The very people claiming they want to democratize the internet and build the future. The investigation focuses heavily on firms like Andreessen Horowitz, also known as A16s. They raised a $7.6 billion crypto fund. They are the loudest voices claiming Web3 is a revolution. But when you press them for specifics, the narrative is completely hollow.
The source highlights an incredibly revealing moment. Mark Andreessen, the co-founder of the firm, goes on a prominent tech podcast. The host asks him a very simple, practical question. How does Web3 actually improve the experience of podcasting for the creator?
And he completely fumbles. He stumbles through buzzwords about new business models and microtransactions, but he literally cannot provide a single, coherent, real-world mechanism for how Web3 improves the existing podcast ecosystem.
Because it doesn't.
And they know it doesn't.
So why are these massive, highly intelligent VC firms pouring billions of dollars into a technology that has no practical utility? Because of the dark mechanic of VC tokenomics. In the traditional tech world, a venture capital firm invests in a startup, like Uber or Airbnb. They have to wait 7 to 10 years for that company to build a real product, acquire actual users, and go public on the stock market before the VC can sell their shares and cash out. But crypto offers a massive shortcut.
Okay, how does the shortcut work?
The VC firm invests real money into a crypto startup. In return, they receive a massive percentage of the startup's newly invented, completely unregulated tokens. The VC firm then uses its vast financial resources, its media connections, and its prestige to hype the project to the public as the next big thing.
And then the moment those tokens are listed on public crypto exchanges, the VC firms immediately dump their massive holdings onto the retail market.
Precisely. They are dumping unregistered securities onto the public within months, not years. And they manage to avoid direct securities fraud charges because they let the startups they funded take the regulatory heat. The VC extracts hundreds of millions in actual fiat currency and leaves the retail investors holding the bag of rapidly depreciating digital tokens.
It is a meticulously designed extraction machine. When you zoom out and look at the entire timeline, from Bitcoin to ICOs, from NFTs to Web3, 13 years after the creation of this technology, there is still no genuine use case that solves a real-world problem better than existing technology. Not one. The only thing this industry has perfected is a mechanism for transferring wealth from the naive to the elite.
It's true. If you look at the blockchain data, the centralization of wealth in crypto is arguably worse and more top-heavy than the traditional Wall Street systems they originally claimed to be disrupting.
And we need to be crystal clear about this, speaking directly to you, the listener. You are the target. The Super Bowl ads with Matt Damon telling you fortune favors the brave, the celebrity endorsements, the manufactured Twitter hype, the complex technobabble, it's all specifically engineered to confuse you. It is designed to spark your greed and to use your hard-earned money as exit liquidity for billionaires. They need you to buy their empty safe so they can walk away with your real money.
The entire ecosystem relies on a continuous supply of greater fools.
Which leaves us with one incredibly chilling thought to end on. If this entire multi-billion-dollar global ecosystem is truly a ticking time bomb, a decentralized Ponzi scheme entirely reliant on an endless supply of new money to survive, what happens to the broader global economy when they finally run out of fools? When the bomb finally goes off and millions of regular people wake up to realize they've been left holding nothing but empty digital bags?
That is the consequence we should all be very afraid of.